Hey everybody, welcome back to PreRolled Exotics. I got another week of successful feedings, and also I'm going to be talking about different kind of tips and things you can do if your hognose isn't feeding. So if you guys are having any trouble getting your hognose to eat, then stick around. Hopefully you'll learn something. All right, so first thing to do if your hognose isn't eating, which is kind of like where we messed up too. We were so excited to get our first snake. We put him in something that we thought was going to be adequate enough for him to move around, explore, and be safe in. We started off with something about this size, thinking it'd be good enough. When we got the babies though, they're really, really small. Like you'd be surprised how small hognose babies actually come. And like this was just way too big. So for like the first week or two, they weren't eating. We left them alone, of course. That's another thing you guys need to do. I know it's hard, but when you first get your baby snake, you want to put it away, put them in a nice area where he's not going to be like, there's not a lot of traffic. There's not going to be people spying on them or pets messing with them or kids shaking the table or anything like that. You want to leave them alone for at least 5 days just so they can get settled, especially if you ship them. If you order them online and you had the breeder ship them to you, then they're probably going to be a little bit stressed out. So you don't want to just, some might eat right away though. That's the only thing I do want to make sure you guys get this clear. Every snake is different, especially with hognose snakes. So what someone else says that works for them, what I say works for me might not work for you. That's just how it is. If you watch Snake Discovery and you see what she does on there with her hognose snakes, that just might not work for you. Your snake might just be a little bit different. So the number one thing is just keep trying everything and don't get discouraged, because like I said, it took ours about a few weeks to start eating before they're like you're really eating consistently, and we still have to scent them too. So don't ever get too discouraged, but just make sure you go down a checklist and make sure you guys are doing everything right. So the first thing I'd recommend is go to something smaller. Next thing we did, you put them in something like these. These worked a little bit better because they're a lot more secure, they're safer in them, but even these are a little bit too big for them. Like my male started eating, but the female, she just was just picky, just was scared and just didn't want to eat for whatever reason. So even though we put them in this, and make sure you always put a heat pad on these, that's on a thermostat as well. And even though we put them in this, we felt it was good enough, but it still took them a while to, get comfortable enough to really start eating for us. So even this was too big. So I know it sounds crazy. I think this is like an 8-quart. It was too big. They didn't like it and they didn't eat. So finally we put them into these ones. These ones I believe are 6 quarts. These ones are really, really small. We have little holes in them poked in for the thermostat and for them to breathe, of course. We put them on these, left them alone for another week. Every time we tried, they didn't eat. We left them alone for a week and then tried again. We didn't keep feeding them the next day. We didn't want to overstress them out. You gotta give them time to, decompress and, relax and figure out that they're safe and they're home and nothing's gonna happen to them, and then try again next week. So after we put them in these, they waited for about a week, and then we tried again, and then we started having more and more success. So we let them in there. Once it was working, you don't want to switch up. If you do give them to eat, do the exact same thing that you did, so that way nothing changes until you're sure they put on some weight, and then you're confident trying to switch them off scenting, or just try to put them in a different enclosure. If you have them in something that's working, then that's great. Leave them in there. That's all you need to do. And lastly, we finally got them into these. And these, I know coming from what I just showed you guys, they're probably like, what? That seems way too big. I just contradicted everything I just said, right? Once your snake is comfortable, especially when it's in a rack system, you got to remember, when it's in a rack, everything's nice and dark, and there's nothing bothering it. It's got its perfect temperatures. There's plenty of space for it to dig, and then plenty of areas for it to hide, lots of cover. I have my fake shed snake in here just for representation. But as you can see, it's big enough. It's pretty big for them, but at the same time, they're nice and secluded. And like I said, we started them off and we let them in here for a really long time, to the point where we felt they were comfortable enough. They're eating consistently and they're moving around their tubs. They're ready to go. So we finally upgraded them to there, and everyone's been doing great so far. I'll show you the feeding video after this, but just a little kind of thing is tips for you guys. When you are feeding them, you don't want to like shove it in their face. You don't want to be too aggressive. That's the first thing they're going to do. They're going to get defensive. They're not going to want to eat for you. You kind of just want to wait till their tongue flicks out, hold it, wiggle it next next to them, wait, let them get a sense of it, and then once they start getting interested, even tease them a little bit, back away a little bit, then they'll come out more and more and more, and then eventually you come in again, they might hit it hard, they might take it slow, they might take it by the side, but the number one thing is you don't want to prod them too much and, be like, why is my snake not eating after you ripped apart his whole enclosure and then pick them up and move them to a different spot, and now you got him in this tank he's ever been in, and now you want to try to stress him out and got a camera in his face. I wouldn't want to eat like that either, So the number one thing is just be patient, be consistent, be quiet, move slow, don't spook him, and then just present the food, get his attention. Once he gets attention, the number one thing is pull him back. I know it sounds weird, but once you pull back, for the majority of our snakes, once you pull it back, they're like, oh no, you're not going nowhere. Then now they really, really want it. If you hold it there, they're not going to be too interested. They might sniff it a little bit or play with it, like, what are you doing? But as soon as you take it away, they're like, wait a minute, come back. And then that's when you can tell that they're interested. And if they're not interested, like I said, no big deal. Give them another week, they'll be hungry again, and they go months without eating, so no need to stress. And then you can try other things like scenting, reptilinks, if you want to do like chicken hearts work, tuna, salmon. There's plenty of other things you can do, but definitely take your time and don't get too discouraged. All right, so about Desi here. Like I said, everybody ate. You see my female. She was a little aggressive. Like I said, just sometimes you gotta just give it a second, come back again. You see, she ate the second time around. Everybody's doing really good. Everyone ate 2 this time actually, so I'm pretty proud. Trying to get my girls up to breeding size because it seems like everyone's breeding hognoses now, and I'm just on the outside just watching everybody, which is fine. I'm gonna take my time, do it right, and you guys can follow along as I raise my girls and raise my boys, and then hopefully produce some eggs. And yeah, get in line because I'm, like I said, it's gonna be a journey though. But that's way down the line. For now, just want to teach you guys. You guys have any questions when we do any videos or anything like that about, even if it's not just about hognose snakes. I focus on hognose snakes, but I know about bearded dragons, leopard geckos, crested geckos, tortoises, turtles, you name it. I'm pretty well versed. So if you have any questions or want me to shoot a video on something in particular, feel free to reach out. Don't forget to like and subscribe, leave a comment, and you guys have a safe week. I'll see you next week.